Hi, this Therapist Has Problems podcast. Hello. This is Natasha Montgomery, and this is the This Therapist Has Problems podcast. Welcome back into my office. I am going to be really transparent right now. So, I had a cancellation today, a client cancellation, and I was like, can I record a podcast really quick before my next session? So, let's see if we can get this done. Today, I won't even say today, I have had a time with recording, which is telling me, okay, I'm on the roll. I'm getting more consistent with recording these podcasts. So I need to upgrade some equipment because my things are falling apart. So just wanted to give you guys some insight on that. But I don't know exactly what I'm going to title this episode, but the sentiment is we tired. And I will preface this with a couple things. I know a couple podcasts back, I started with the same sentiment, letting y'all in on a secret that I was tired. That was from a physical sense. Now, the recurring theme that I am hearing in my sessions with my clients, with my friends, family, even sometimes in my personal life is like, I'm tired. I ain't got it. We ain't got it. And what I mean is this emotional toll that it takes to show up, to pour out yourselves for other people. And there are times where you just feel like, I'm tired. I can't take on anything else. I can't hold any more things in my hand. And I'm going to say this. I know you may be like, girl, didn't you just tell us how important having a support system was? Yes, I did. That's true. I told you that. And it is still valid. It is very important to have a support system. It is very important to have people in your lives that you can depend on and for other people to be able to depend on you. But also, you need to be able to check in with yourself to say, self, do I have the capacity to show up for other people? And if your answer is no, then it is okay to take a breather, take a step back and say, you know what? I really just need to pour into myself right now. Doesn't mean you don't love that person anymore. Doesn't mean that you're abandoning them or you don't care. It's saying, in order for me to show up for you in the way that you deserve, I have to recharge my battery. So, the working title is Help You? Nah, Help Me. Right? That seems a little like back up in your face, right? So I may work on that, but the sentiment is I don't have it to give right now. So let's talk about what does it mean when you are burnt out emotionally. You just feel like, okay, I don't have it to be able to show up and support other people right now. And I really just need to take a step back and pour into myself. So let's talk about what this means and what this looks like. You know me, I already know. I'm gonna be looking over here because I always have some notes so we can stay on task. So why are we so tired? Why are we feeling emotionally depleted, emotionally burnt out, emotionally exhausted? Because we're constantly giving. We are constantly giving of ourselves. I'll be really honest. I've shared and I've disclosed that I am divorced, and I have shared custody with my ex-husband. And we have a week-to-week custody schedule. So I'll have the kids for a week, he'll have the kids for a week, and we switch off week to week. And one thing I will say is that from the moment when I have my kids, from the moment I wake up in the morning to the time that I go to bed at night, I feel like I am constantly giving. And I noticed that on our switch day, I am exhausted, depleted. The only thing I want to do at the end of the day, realistically, is just go to sleep because I feel like, okay, I wake up in the morning. First thing I do when I wake up in the morning, waking my kids up from school, which is a process. So waking them up for school, trying to make sure they're up and at 'em, getting myself dressed and ready to start my work day, making sure that they put something in their mouths and eat, letting my puppy out to go, making him some breakfast, driving them to school, dropping them off at two different locations. They go to two different schools, rushing back home, trying to figure out what I can eat really quick before I log into my first session for the day. Log into my session for the day. I book my sessions back to back. So hour on hour, I have sessions until it's time to immediately leave after my last session to go and get my daughter from school, then go pick up my son from school. And if she has sports or he has work or activities, I'm going, figuring out dinner, spending time with the kids, taking the puppy on a walk, spending some time just kind of trying to relax, making sure my kids go to bed, and then I will scroll as a decompression, as a break. I will spend time on my phone, scrolling, which we talked about is not healthy, um, until I fall asleep. And then my alarm goes off a few hours later, and I wake up and do it all over again. So we are constantly giving of ourselves. And that's just an example of what my life looks like typically when my kids are in the mix. And I didn't include being a partner. I didn't include being a friend, being a daughter, being a part of my sorority. I did not include building my business, doing administrative stuff. All of that is plugged in there somewhere, right? So there's a constant giving, which can lead to not only physical exhaustion, but also emotional burnout. So, for you, are you always the go to person in your family, your friendships, your relationships, at work? Then you understand. Do you have guilt of saying no, even when you feel drained? Then this is for you. Are you feeling like you're pouring from an empty cup, but you're expected to keep going regardless? Then this is definitely for you. We can relate, we can feel each other on that. Another thing I want to address when it comes to this emotional exhaustion and burnout is I have to be able to speak from my own personal experience. I am a African American woman, right? I'm a Black woman. And with that comes expectations, right? To say, okay, we are taught to be caregivers and problem solvers. So often we have the expectation that we have it all together. I feel like my hands are ashy. We have the expectation that we have it all together, that we have our lives figured out, and we need to do all of the things all of the time. And not only that, we got to do it with a smile because God forbid we have a bad day or we're feeling emotional or we're feeling drained and are in a mood, and it's like, them Black women, they always got attitude, not knowing, you don't know the load that I have been carrying. I'm tired. Okay. So there is another layer of that mental exhaustion that comes with just being a Black woman existing. And I'm not trying to invalidate anyone else's experience because I have a Black son, I have Black, men around me, and I see and fully recognize the same barriers that they face as well, and other counterparts who also have lives and responsibilities and have to carry that. But I can speak from my experience as a Black woman and that level of just general expectation that is placed on us to show up consistently, right? Another thing is the strong friend syndrome, right? And that trope, I think people are recognizing is not a compliment. It is not a compliment to say, "Ooh, you a strong Black woman." Mm-mm. I don't want to have to be the heavy lifter in all of my relationships all of the time. So, this concept of being a strong friend or a strong Black woman is who is there to support you when you need it. So let's talk more about that. To say again, I'm not trying to negate my previous points because they are valid. We need a support system. We need others to be a support system for us. However, we also need to understand when it is important and essential to pour into ourselves. So let's talk about the signs that you are burnt out and you need to recharge. for me personally, I'll give some really good examples of how I can recognize, okay, Natasha, you're burnt out. You need to take a break. You need to decompress. I will start to be irritable. I will start to have a very short fuse as far as if I have to take one more thing on my plate, I start to sense my mood is changing. I will start to be very tired. And also, one thing for me personally, I feel like when I am at my burnout peak, that is when the tears, that is when the emotions come. And it's like, okay, my body is telling me you're holding on to too much and you need to release it some kind of way. So, for you, when you're looking at signs that you may be burnt out or need to recharge, one is feeling emotionally exhausted. So, you're feeling drained, you're feeling numb, you're feeling easily irritated. So, like I said, those signs that you're recognizing. Again, you're feeling drained, numbed, easily irritated. One sign that you can recognize about that emotional exhaustion, are you starting to avoid people's calls? Are you starting to avoid people's text because you just cannot deal with another problem? If your homegirl that calls you all the time picks up the phone and you see her name and you're like, nah, I can't do that today. And you love talking to her, she's your bestie, but today I just can't do it, then that is a sign you're dealing with some emotional exhaustion. Another symptom or sign of burnout are the physical symptoms. Again, your body will tell the story 100%. So, are you feeling fatigue? Are you having headache? Are you having tension? Oftentimes, when I'm really stressed, I carry tension in my shoulders. So, it just feels like I'm like this all the time, very tight. So, are you experiencing tension and frequent sickness? So, oftentimes, when people are very stressed, most of the time they'll say, okay, I just keep getting sick. I just keep getting colds. I don't understand why. It's likely potentially you're carrying some stress, some anxiety, some burnout, and your body is trying to push you into slowing down. The next sign is resentment starts to creep in. And we know resentment can sneak up on us. So it's good to be aware of when this is starting to build and starting to be present. So you're feeling like people only come to you when they need something. So again, your homeboy calls, your mom calls, your bestie, your kids reach out, and you're like, dang, you only reach out to me when you want something. I'm not answering the phone. I don't have time for this right now. That's that resentment starting to creep in to say, okay, this feels beyond just having a let's chat, let's kick it type of conversation, but you're feeling like anytime someone is reaching out to you, it's potentially another task that's been being placed on your plate. The other symptom or sign to look out for is a loss of joy. That don't sound good. So, no longer enjoying things that used to bring you peace. And that one is a big one that is saying, okay, something is happening for you that you need to pause, you need to address and assess. So, if you're noticing, for me, I have really, and I've learned this over the years, I really love being outdoors. It's something that just brings me kind of that peace, just grounds me, makes me kind of take away the distractions and just be in the moment. But if I find that I'm just, like I said, I'm exhausted, I'm doing all the things, I'm getting home, and I'm like, that puppy can go in the backyard. I don't feel like going for a walk. I don't feel like being outside. I just don't want to deal with it. Those things, if you have a friend group that you love hanging out with and they do bring you joy, but you're like, nah, I don't feel like dealing with that right now. Something is telling you, okay, you may be hitting some burnout. So, again, four signs, and these are only four. There's others, but these are four very pressing ones that you can kind of take an inventory of yourself to say, okay, am I potentially dealing with some burnout? So, again, emotional exhaustion, physical symptoms, resentment beginning to creep in, and then overall loss of joy. So, if you are recognizing that you are having these symptoms, great. It's like, all right, I'm dealing with that. Now what? Let's talk about how do you set some boundaries without feeling guilty. That guilt piece, it's a big thing, especially when you are used to being in the position of being the helper. When you are used to being the person that everyone comes to, you're used to being the person that helps solve everyone's problems. You're the get it done person. You're like, hey, let me know what's going on. I'll get it done. That guilt will creep up on you so thick, it will prevent you from being intentional about taking time for yourself, which will only lead to increased resentment. So, how do we work on setting some healthy boundaries? The first thing is normalizing saying no without over explaining. The most critical thing that I've learned, and I've had to work on this, is no is a complete sentence. That's the final thing. I didn't have anything else deep to say after that. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to justify your no. You don't have to qualify your no. You don't have to over explain your no. The only thing that you need to do is check in with yourself and say, is this something that I am willing to do? Is this something that I'm capable of doing? Is this something that I desire to do? Am I willing, capable? Do I desire it? And another thing is, do I have the capacity to do it? Right? So if it is someone reaching out saying, hey girl, can you do this? I love to, but I just can't take that on right now. I would love to help, but now is not a good time. Normalizing, not saying, oh, I can't do it because making up a lie, because we will do that in a minute. Oh, no, I can't do that. I got called in late for work and I got to stay late. So, no, I'm not going to be available, rather than saying, I can't, not today. We can check it back in and maybe revisit it next week, but not today. I can't do it. Sorry. And I'll retract the sorry. I don't think you should apologize for that. So normalizing saying no without over explaining. And let me clarify why I just said that. Sometimes we have to be aware of when we are apologizing for things when we haven't done anything wrong. If you're trying to teach yourself that it is okay to assess and say no when necessary, be mindful of when you're apologizing and the messaging that it's sending to yourself. If you are saying and communicating a valid no by saying, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I can't do this for you. It's sending a message to yourself that you're doing something wrong, when in reality, you're truly being honest with yourself about where a boundary is needed. Okay, so I wanted to take that moment and explain that. The next thing, and I love this tip, this is so important for those people pleasers out there, for those people who are naturally helpers and jump in and dive in to help and do things. Take a pause before agreeing to help. Take a pause before agreeing to help. So if you know that you're a person who kind of just goes along or just says yes, even though you know you don't feel like it, even though you know you don't have time to do it, start building the habit of not providing an answer in the moment. It insulates you and builds an opportunity for you to take a moment to yourself to again assess, is this something I'm willing to do? Is it something that I'm capable of doing? Is it something I desire to do? And is it something that I have the capacity to do? In saying, someone calls you, hey, can you help me with this? Let me check and I'll get back to you. You're not giving them an answer in the moment, but you are saying, hey, I will assess and I'll get back to you on this. And if your answer is no, then say, you know what, I checked and no, it's not something I can do right now. You're giving yourself an opportunity to assess. Another thing is recognizing that boundaries do not mean you don't care. Let me say that again. Recognize that setting boundaries does not mean that you don't care. It does not mean that you are heartless or you don't care about their situation or you don't love that person anymore. Setting a boundary means that you care about yourself as well. I always say, when we think about people pleasers, when you're a people pleaser and you're doing everything and anything for anyone else, how are you not including yourself as a person as well? What are you doing to please you if you fall into the category of a people pleaser? So this is kind of along those same lines, right? Having a boundary does not mean that you don't care about them, the other person. It says, you know what, I care about myself as well. I care about myself enough to say, let me check in with me to determine if this is something I'm willing, capable, desire, and have the capacity to do. So, setting boundaries is normalizing that no is a complete sentence. You don't have to over explain it. Pause before agreeing to help and recognize that having a boundary does not mean that you don't care. When you're setting a boundary, you're starting to say no. You may find, hey, you got some more time on your hands. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with saying, okay, now I say no. I have some more time. I'm not agreeing to doing things that I don't want to do, or I'm not agreeing to things begrudgingly, where I'm showing up and helping with an attitude or full of resentment. Now that you've established some boundaries, what do you do next? Now it's time to say, what does it look like for you to recharge your battery and prioritize yourself? So, one thing I'd say is find out what your reset button is. A lot of times we often say, okay, I need a break. I feel overwhelmed. I feel stressed out. What is your thing that helps you have a reset? What is that thing that recharges you and makes sure you feel like, okay, I feel rested. I feel like I've given myself some time. I've given myself a break. What is your reset? So, alone time may be your thing, having some creative hobbies, saying yes to yourself instead of saying yes to others. So, for me personally, again, I mentioned I enjoy being out in nature, and I recognize that that is something that brings me joy and recharges me. So, I may intentionally say, you know what? I want to go on a hike. I want to go somewhere where I can be around trees and fresh air and sun. That will be my opportunity just to decompress and be alone. I also enjoy painting or coloring, right? So those quick things. Or maybe it's I like to binge watch my favorite show and I'm going to say no to you so I can do that instead. So you figure out what your reset button is. What is that thing that you have been not denying yourself or you haven't had the time to pour into you to recharge your battery? The next thing is for you to communicate with your support system. So, going back to that value of having a support system. So, let them know when you need help. So, everyone is coming to you. You're the go getter, you're the helper, you're the problem solver. Are you being intentional about reaching out to others as well and saying, you know what, I actually need some help with some things right now? So don't suffer in silence. Allow your support system to show up for you in the same ways that you were able to show up for them. A healthy support system means mutual care. It is not a one-sided emotional labor. Your support system, it should be reciprocal. It doesn't mean a tit for tat. It doesn't mean, well, you do this, so I'm going to do exactly this. It's saying, I'm showing up for you, you're showing up for me. It should be a mutual exchange of love, energy, effort, support. So, another part, so in prioritizing and prioritizing yourself, recharging your battery, finding out what your reset is, learning how to communicate with your support system and ask for any support that you need, and schedule rest like it is non-negotiable. Like I said, I ran through my schedule, some things that are non-negotiable. I have to be a mom. I have to show up and be present for my kids. I have to take them to school. Sometimes it may be a little late, but I have to take them to school. I have to make sure I pick them up from school. I have to work. I have to make sure that they're getting to their activities. Those are those things that it's like, okay, boom, boom, boom. I have to do that. The same way that we're able to put all these other tasks on our schedule, scheduling yourself time to rest, to decompress, to take some time alone, to pour into yourself. That is necessary and again, non negotiable. Meaning, if you put it on your schedule, it isn't, snooze it, I'll get to it maybe in a week or two. No, you have to prioritize pouring into yourself. And I always say, do it voluntarily before your body forces you to. Because if your body forces you to sit down, it is not going to be at a convenient time. So take this opportunity to be proactive and schedule yourself some time to rest so your body don't have to do it for you. Take my advice. I just shared in a previous couple of podcasts how I went through some major health concerns and I had to be aware to say, okay, I have to be more intentional about taking care of myself. I only have one life and I have people in my life, my children, my family who are depending on me, and I am depending on me to make sure I am okay. So, cutting some things out of my schedule and being intentional about scheduling time to rest. Okay? Excuse me, sorry. How to value and strengthen your support system. So, again, all of this is intertwined and tied together. We are all, and I said this before, we are not meant to do life by ourselves. We are meant as a people, as a human population, we need one another. So if you find that you have a friend and you're like, that is my go-to person, I can always go to them, I can always lean on them, they're always there when I call them, take a minute and recognize what can you do to be more intentional about checking in on that friend. Your strong friends need support and help too. And I know that there are a lot of us who fall into that position of the strong friend, but there's also a lot of us who have that strong friend that we know we can go to for help. So, the same way that that person is there for you, choose to also be able to show up for them. Okay? And I want to add this, and I was just talking to someone about this. I think a lot of times we unnecessarily overextend ourselves. So I know that for some people, in me saying, hey, check on your strong friends, hey, relationships have to be mutual, hey, you have to be able to pour into each other mutually. For some people, it's like, again, this is the point of this podcast, right? I ain't got time for that. I'm burnt out. I don't have the space. I don't have the capacity. Most of the times, I recognize that when people are reaching out, they're not asking you to fix their problems. They're not asking you to solve their life issues for them. A lot of them just want a space to vent it out, talk it out, so at least they have the words out of their head, and then they can go into problem solving mode for themselves. So, again, whichever hat you wear, and sometimes we wear multiple hats, where for this group of people, I'm the strong friend. For these other group of people, maybe I lean on them a little bit more. One, showing up is not always doing something. Sometimes it's just being present. So you have someone reaching out to you, you're reaching out to them, saying, hey, I have space, you can vent it out. And if they're not asking you for any support, you don't necessarily have to offer. I know that may sound wrong for us helpers out there, but saying, you know what, I have capacity to listen. That doesn't mean I have capacity to show up and help you move next week, right? So I think really assessing what is the need that this person is actually communicating to you versus the need that we are assuming that person wants you to jump in and solve. So I hope that makes sense when it comes to checking in on your strong friends too, and understanding that relationships should be mutual and not one-sided. That doesn't mean taking on a unnecessarily heavy load or heavy burden. It's saying, how do you create a space for that person to talk without feeling this sense of obligation to jump in and solve their problems? And that should be assessed on a case by case basis. Again, determining what are you willing, capable, desire to do, and have the capacity for. The next thing is make space for joy and connection, not just crisis management. Make space for joy and connection, not just crisis management. What does this mean? Call people just to laugh, talk about life, joke, have fun. Hey, girl, let's go to the movies. Hey, let's just go grab a bite to eat. You're not just reaching out to people when something is wrong. You're not just reaching out to people when you're struggling with things or you need help with something. But a part of friendship is having a balance where you're also just enjoying each other's company, where there's nothing wrong, there's no complaints, but I just want to share this space with you to laugh. So, balancing out joy, connection, leaning on the relationship as something that is a source of fun and not just a space to vent. And I think we could all benefit from being more self aware and intentional about how we show up in our friendships and our relationships to say, if I'm only sharing with you the negative things, it makes sense why when you call or when I call, you don't answer the phone. No one wants to be a constant dumping ground. You also want to have space of enjoyment in your relationships. And I will say this as a therapist. The purpose of having a therapist is to have a space that is designated for you to talk and focus on your problems. That isn't something you want to put on your friends, on your family, on your partner. Yes, I'm not saying don't share any of that with them, but that shouldn't be the only aspect of communication and connection in your relationship. And then the next one is surround yourself with people who refill your cup. So be intentional about who has access to your time and your energy. So, again, how do you value and strengthen your support system? Check on your strong friends, make space for joy and connection, and then surround yourself with people who refill your cup. And that one takes intentional effort on your part because we're not children, we're not babies, right? A lot of times we have friendships based on proximity. Growing up, we are friends with people who go to our same daycare, who live on our same street, who go to our same school. As an adult, you now have the ability to choose what your support system looks like. So if you find that the people around you do not have the capacity to fill your cup, do not have the past capacity to bring joy and fun into your life, then saying, go back and watch my video on support systems to say, okay, how do you begin to create that for yourself so you're not constantly running into this space of emotional burnout? So, we touched on a lot, but I want to first express I understand this resounding sentiment, and I'm hearing it more and more frequently. We're tired. We don't have the space. We don't have the capacity. We don't have it in us at times to show up for other people. One, I want to say it's normal. It's normal to have those moments where you're feeling like I can't take on anything else. My plate is running over. There's things falling on the floor that are essential that I'm trying to figure out how to pick up. I don't have space for you to call and dump on me right now. It's normal. And it is okay to take care of yourself. So, in this process, recognizing that in order for us to be able to be healthy, to show up for ourselves, to show up for others, we have to prioritize taking care of ourselves. So, you cannot, and I know we've said this a million times before, but I will say it again, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Literally, nothing will come out. It's empty. You have to rest. You have to pour into yourself so that you are pouring out of yourself positively. Okay. Another thing is you cannot pour from a depleted cup and expect to show up in a healthy way. It's not going to happen. You're going to show up resentful, frustrated, angry, irritable. I think it's better to be self aware and say, I can't answer the phone right now. I cannot go and do this thing. I can't because I don't have anything else to give in this moment. Doesn't mean you don't love that person. Doesn't mean you don't care. Again, it means that you care and love yourself as well. Okay. So, a couple of things I want for you to do. First, I want to say thank you for each and every person who has listened and engaged with this podcast. I've shared my story about how this was a long time coming, working and fighting to get this up and running, working and fighting to become consistent. But I appreciate every single person who has engaged, expressed how much they enjoy this podcast. I have a belief that whoever this is supposed to touch, that is who it's going to reach. The only thing I'm asking you in this moment, if you are not currently subscribed to our M.B.S. Whole Health YouTube channel, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. It helps to further the message and help other people to be more aware that this space exists. Also hit like on the video so that it also can get that engagement going, and share something that you are willing to do in the comments to be more intentional about recharging your battery and filling your own cup. I'll give you a minute. Let's see. What are some things that you can do today to protect your energy, whether it's setting a boundary or just carving out intentional time to rest? So let us know in the comments, what is something that you're going to be intentional about in setting a boundary, taking time out to pour into yourself. Couple resources I want to give you. If you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like this episode resonated with you and you're like, okay, I hear all this information, but I'm feeling stuck at taking the first step. If you're in the state of Texas, I am licensed in the state of Texas. Go to my website, M.B.S. Whole Health. There's an option on there to book an appointment. If you are looking for a therapist in another area, I always recommend Therapy for Black Girls or Psychology Today. If you are in a crisis, please know that you are not alone. Utilize the 988 hotline number so that you can get the support that you need as quickly as possible. I want to put this disclaimer out there. It is always in my show description, but this space is not a replacement for therapy. You need someone to walk with you on your journey to make sure that you have the space that you need. This space is to pique your mind to think about some things that maybe you hadn't thought about, give you some things to kind of assess yourself and nudge you towards the comfort of going to therapy. I am a therapist. I'm also a real person. So my goal of having this space is to give you a peek behind the veil of what it looks like to be a therapist who is also someone who be having some problems. So I hope that you have gotten something from this podcast today. Again, if you're feeling burnt out, take a breather, take a break, give yourself some rest so that you can show up as the healthiest version of yourself. Thank you again for stepping into my office. I will see you next time. Bye. Oh, by the way, I recorded this podcast and I still got about 20 minutes before my next session. She did that. Bye.